Now, this is annual change in GDP from a decade earlier. So you're getting all the long-term trends in one graphic. First country we, of course, have to deal with is China because it's such an outlier. Number one, they lie about a lot of their data, so it's probably not as good as it sounds. It's probably at least a third less, maybe half. It's still the fastest growth of the last 50 years in the world. The one-child policy and rapid urbanization landed China with a much, much lower birth rate. In fact, it's been higher in the United States since the early 90s. Now, in the long term, no secret that I think this is going to be the end of not just the Chinese state, but the Chinese nation. The actual Han ethnicity is going to vanish from the world by the end of this century. But in the meantime, when you have a lot of people in their 20s and 30s and early 40s, but no kids and not a lot of retirees, every bit of energy can be focused on a combination of industrial production and consumption, which are the two primary methods for growing GDP. And if you have that at the same time, that you are also subsidizing the hell out of your industry, so you have a lot of investment-led production, yes, you do get growth, and yes, it is robust, and yes, it sets records. But it also sets the stage for the second problem, which is why that chart has just collapsed on the right side. And that is that when those people in their 20s and their 30s and their early 40s become in their 40s, their 50s, and their early 60s, then that growth story is over. And you no longer have the workforce that is necessary to keep the activity going. And then all that's left is exports and investment. And that's where the Chinese were about 10, 15 years ago. Well, now, in the late 2020s and moving into the 2030s, the people who are in their 40s, 50s, and early 60s move on to their late 50s, 60s, and early 70s, and then it's just over. We're already in a situation where the Chinese have about the same amount of population and people over age 50 as under age 50. This is already a terminal demographic. You just can't get people in their 60s to kick out kids. But it does also mean that unless the Chinese can wildly automate and retain access to every remaining consumer market in the world, that they are almost done. And we're seeing that in the data.